What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talking Halos. I'm your host today, Jared Timms, and I'm joined alongside my co-host, my partner in crime, Nate Green. Nate, how you doing?
Excited. We're getting closer and closer to opening day. It is going to be a
Opening
fun
week.
day.
Opening week.
Well, we are here.
Yes. Got some fun stuff to talk about. I do want to bring up, and we haven't talked. Actually, I don't know when I forgot when it ended. World Baseball Classic. Would like to talk about that because saw one of the best at bats of all time and controversy. Obviously, always controversy. Definitely want to talk about that. And then we're down to the final spot, which exactly is what we thought the final spot would probably look like in the Angels roster. And by the time this comes out, we may have other news about that final spot. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll kind of see how it plays out. I have a feeling I know which way they're going to go with it. But you never know. So let's get it rolling here. Nate, we saw the best at bat of all time.
Sure.
Depending on who you're talking to.
It was the most entertaining at bat for sure. I think anytime you get to see two guys who are on the same team that are considered the best players in the sport go head to head, it definitely is entertaining at bat. Historic at bat, yes, because the World Baseball Classic is important. You could see how important it was to Japan and to the US just for being there and things like that. Mexico, it was important for them to be there. Like all these teams, it was very important for them to be there. So that was good as well. I don't know. The one thing that kind of sucks is like you wish there was somebody on base or something to make it a little bit more pressure moment. I know Ohtani gives up a homer there and it's tied, but like if there's a base runner on, I think it makes it a little bit more entertaining, but that's just me.
I mean, you're not going to bunt Mookie, are you?
No, I was hoping that, and you already set me up for this, so thank you. I was hoping that with the pinch runner Bobby Witt, that you put him in motion.
Yes.
If Bobby Witt steals second there, if he gets thrown out, he gets thrown out because Mookie grounds in a double play anyway. Obviously, you don't know that going in. Yeah, you don't know that going into the AB, but you did pinch run for Jeff McNeil, so you put Bobby Witt Jr. in for the speed. I think you got to give him, especially knowing Ohtani is not the quickest to the plate, you give him a pitch, maybe two to steal. And then Mookie's AB is completely different. It's like, hey, I don't need to hit a ball in the gap off of one of the best pitchers in the game. I just got to hit a ground ball to second to get a job done. Or, I can hit a seeing eye single off the middle to get a job done. Like there are so many different ways instead of like, oh, I can't hit the ball on the ground. I've got to stay in the air, in the gap to win this thing, because if I hit the ball on the ground, it's probably a double play. And that's kind of how the AB ended. And then I think it made it way easier. And I've mentioned this to a couple of people. I think it made everything way easier for Ohtani facing Trout with nobody on.
Yeah.
With a guy on base, Ohtani has to worry about, is the guy going to steal? He has to worry about wild pitch or pass ball. And he's got to worry a little bit more about not making a mistake. With nobody on, it's like, let me just rear back and let it rip. And if it gets to the backstop, who cares? I'm throwing this thing as hard as I possibly can, trying to get as much movement as possible. And I'm trying to strike him out. The one thing I know I'm not going to do, I'm not going to give up a home run. I'm either going to strike him out or I'm going to walk him. There's no way I'm giving up a home run to this guy. And I'm just going to make sure that either the pitch is way too nasty where I pull something and it goes to the backstop, or it's in the dirt or something like that, or I blow something by him. But there's no way I'm giving up a home run to Mike Trout.
Yeah. No, I would have liked to have seen the wheels in motion, like you mentioned, hit and run, something along the lines of that. Like you're going to put the ball in play with Mookie, probably doesn't strike out a whole lot, does strike out, but doesn't strike out a whole lot. Probably get ball in play like we saw there. Or at least straight steal, like we mentioned. I said it when watching it. You got to get the wheels in motion here. And then, and not having a runner on changes the total dynamic of that at-bat, which was a fantastic at-bat.
It was fun.
Yeah, no, it definitely was.
Trout took a tough pitch. The slider was unbelievable that Ohtani threw. That's a really tough pitch. And the cool thing about the AB, Trout swung at strikes. Like, I know
I wanted to mention that. Now you sound really smart. I was going to say that. That was my favorite part about the at bat. That was the first thing I noticed. No, go ahead. Say
Yeah. No,
that's
well,
fine.
I'm just like he stayed in the zone, which is tough, facing 102.6 and the slider, and
Mhm.
go ahead.
It was my favorite part of the at bat. I said it right after. I said Trout swung at all strikes, right? Trout swung at all strikes, and he took all balls. Like that was the most incredible thing about that at bat. And then also the stat that Trout's only swung and missed 3 times in at bat, 24 times. That's unbelievable too. The fact like there's so many, like I know Trout didn't do what anybody wanted him to do. He struck out obviously, but like you saw best against best, arguably the best pitcher in baseball, against arguably the best player in baseball. And he threw him, you saw all of it. Disgusting sliders that, weren't hit. You saw 102 from him. Like it was mono e mono, like best against best. And again, yes, the fact that Mike Trout only swung at strikes during that at bat is just stupid unbelievable to me. Like took 3 balls, swung at 3 strikes, like, and the slider that he took too could have been a strike.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I wouldn't ring him up. Like it was a good call by the umpire, but it could have been a strike. It could have become can you imagine if he would have rung him up? Oh man, that would have been brutal. But I had to bring that up before we talk some Angels baseball. Granted, that was Angels baseball, but man, that was a lot of fun. So let's get on to some Angels baseball talk. News breaking today from the Angels clubhouse. Max Stassi starting on the IL, which means Logan O'Hoppe and Matt Thaiss are your catchers for opening day. Not all that. I think I'm indifferent about it because I would like to see Matt Thaiss hit. I want to know what that is before you let him go. But it does put the Angels in a tough spot once Max Stassi does come back. I'll say that. Like there kind of goes your, not really goes your depth, but now you're gonna have to sneak Thaiss through waivers, or you're sending O'Hoppe down once Stassi's ready. Granted, Stassi hasn't been all that healthy, and I like Chad Wallach behind the plate a little bit more, anyways, than Thaiss, but that's just me. I think I'd rather see Wallach. As weird as that sounds, I know it's kind of a hot take, but I really like Chad Wallach.
I don't think it's that hot of a take, honestly. Like Thaiss is not great behind the dish. Like he has issues. That's why when people were talking about him in the draft, they were like, probably not a catcher long term. All these issues. They were like, hey, he's the best hitting catcher in the country, but I don't know if he sticks at catcher. He probably has to move to first base or DH, and I don't know if if he hits enough to be valuable enough to play first base or DH. And that's kind of what we've seen with Thaiss. They've tried to put him in some places where his bat is going to be valuable enough to stick there, but also he's going to be able to play good enough defense. And they haven't really been able to find that spot for him. Like Taylor Ward was able to find the spot for him because coming out of Fresno State, he was, similar thing. Like, oh, really good catcher, swings it. Not a good catcher. He's got a really good arm.
What
and he
WRC
hits.
plus? What does he have to hit WRC plus wise to make him valuable to you? 115?
Where?
120? Behind the dish, behind the plate. Because we know he's not
Like
a good
what position are you saying? First base, catcher.
What does Thaiss have to hit WRC plus wise to be a valuable player behind the plate?
Behind the plate?
As a catcher, yeah. I mean, you think about it, like he's not.
If he throws up a 90,
well, that's not valuable though, right? Like
as
he's
the
not
backup
a good
catcher.
Well, he's not. No. So here's the thing, though. Also, you think about it. He's not a good defensive catcher.
That's true.
Like that brings his value down. So you have to hit.
Yeah, he probably has to be in that 105 to 110 range.
Yeah, I was gonna say 115 to be a valuable. As weird as that sounds, I don't know.
It also depends on how much he's catching too. So like if we're playing 7 games in a week and he's catching 6 times, he can be a 90 WRC plus and a subpar catcher depending on who he's catching. Like if he's catching Tyler Anderson, which he did, tonight, that's one of the easiest guys to catch. Not a lot of velo, not going to beat you that way. He might have some stuff that you have to beat to a spot, but like that stuff is easy. It's the catching velo and beating it to a spot.
Ohtani, you're not catching those type of guys. Yeah.
No, and even like Sandoval, we've seen the slider has been good. Detmers has the hard slider now. It's like 88, 91 with the curveball. Like that's not an easy guy to catch either. Suarez is all over the place. Like he's not an easy guy to catch because
Suarez is like Anderson in my opinion. I think it's
I
easier
just
to
think
catch
Suarez
Suarez.
doesn't throw enough strikes to be as easy to catch as Anderson.
That's fair, but you're not. I
Like
mean,
Tyler Anderson, like he's one of those guys where it's like I put my glove there, he's probably hitting right around my glove, and it's 88 miles an hour. Suarez is like 92, 94, might touch 95. But the one thing is he doesn't repeat everything. So it's like I might set up away and he might miss in. Where Tyler Anderson's really like, hey, I throw 88 and it's gonna be yeah, pretty much where I'm supposed to be. So I would say Tyler Anderson's the easiest guy for him to catch. And if it were to go that way, like if he's catching once a week and that's who he's catching, he could probably get away with it. But if he's having to catch 4 or 5 times a week because it's literally going to be straight platoon, and it's like, oh, we faced 2 lefties this week, so Hoppy's going to get those 2 starts, and the other 5 is going to go to Thaiss. Like he's going to have to absolutely rake to be valuable behind the dish.
Yeah, like I said 115 probably that WRC plus to be valuable. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I would like to see him catch some games or get some at bats to see what he is. It's kind of like the Mike Stefanik treatment for me. Like I want to know what he is. You know, like he's had a chance, but not really. The same thing like the Joe Adele type of thing. Like he had a chance, but not really. Like give him a chance and see what he does. I'd like to see Hoppy behind the dish more than Thaiss, obviously, when it comes
The
down.
one thing that does suck though for him is he's out of options. So
yes,
the first time, like if Stassi is back relatively soon and they have to figure out, oh, are we picking between Thaiss or Ohtani? It's like, let's be honest with ourselves. Ohtani is the future behind the dish. It's not Matt Thaiss. We have never thought it was Matt
it's not
Thaiss.
Max Stassi either.
It's not. It's Logan Ohtani.
It's Ohtani
So
and Caro, realistically.
maybe Carol, maybe. But it is Ohtani for sure, especially with what we've seen out of him. So it's his job. So are you going to say let's send Ohtani down and we'll let Stassi and Thaiss play a little bit and see if one of them like really proves that they're a backup catcher? Like you can't do that. So are you almost like wasting a roster spot at this point? Because right when Thaiss goes, he's DFA'd.
Yeah, and somebody's gonna pick him up.
Maybe catching depth is one of those things where like some random team is like, oh, we only have 2 catchers. One of our catchers is hurt or something. We'll just pick him up and do the same thing to him. Like he'll be up for 2 or 3 weeks and then we'll DFA him. And if somebody else picks him up, that's fine. But if not, we'll just let him go to AAA. So he'll probably bounce around this year. I would say he's on 3 different teams minimum this year if he doesn't stick on the Angels for the entire year.
Yep, former first rounder. I can definitely see that happening. On to another injury. I air quote that, starting on the IL. Jared Walsh with insomnia. I don't think I've ever seen that before. By the way, that is what it is, going on the IL for insomnia.
And
headaches.
Yeah, there you go.
I had to put that in there.
You did.
Insomnia and headaches.
Yep.
All right.
I think it's related.
You think it's related to TOC?
I do. I do.
For what?
I just think with the recovery that he's had, it's related somehow. Just because the body is really weird. You're taking something out of the body, and you know he had a tough time breathing. All these different things. Like I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor. I don't know for sure if this is related, but I just think that he's had issues with his body because of TOS. And now that they think they fixed the problem, and you're hoping his problem is fixed, which the doctors say everything's good, but like how often does this happen where a doctor's like, oh, he's good, and then a couple months later it's like, oh, it's not 100% fixed. So I don't know. I'm not saying that it's for sure related. I just think it's possible with knowing what TOS does and how it could kind of relate to this. And you would think that because of the TOS, he probably didn't sleep that well to begin with, because he was having a hard time breathing. He was in pain. Everything was tingling. All these things, like he probably wasn't sleeping well to begin with. So I don't know.
I'm looking it up right now to see. There's some things.
To be fair, we did call Walsh not being on the roster opening day. I'm sorry.
I don't think we can get that. I don't think that really can. We are right.
We did say that though.
We did, but I don't think I can. If there is,
if we find out
if I
it's
find
related
something,
somehow,
if I find something in here for sure. And while I'm looking it up, I'll ask you this: how do you feel about the Angels' infield depth now? I think we're going to see Jake Lamb up. However, hold tight there on the Jake Lamb side of stuff. He did get scratched tonight with a little glute tightness. Man's got a fantastic ass, but little glute tightness. How do you feel about that?
It sucks. Because it's the same thing as Matt Theis. Like, you would have hoped that Walsh made the roster and Jake Lamb either made the roster straight out of spring and, maybe Brett Phillips didn't make the roster, or whatever it is, like somebody else. But it sucks because you're in that same position as Theis, because now you put Jake Lamb on your 40. So I know it's super easy. Jose Marte goes on the 60. There's a couple other guys like Chris Rodriguez could possibly even go on the 60. I don't know. There's a couple guys that it could be pretty easy to make room for him, right? The only thing that sucks is now you have Jake Lamb's clock started basically, and once Walsh comes back, what if Lamb is hitting? Do we say, hey, I've been
saying I said it before. I said it before this. I know they weren't. Phil Nevin wasn't happy with Luis Renifo's offseason. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't going to be surprised if Lamb made the team and they actually sent Renifo down to AAA like that. I know that Renifo was fantastic last year and everything, but there's certain guys you can't take a spot away from, and Renifo I think has options too. So it's kind of. It was one of those like odd man out type of things that like, you can give Lamb a chance and see what he does.
But you see the predicament that it brings now is like, once Walsh is back, now you have to decide between Rengifo, Phillips, and Lamb, and you're almost in the same position that you were in before the end of spring training, except for the only difference is, if you're not keeping Jake Lamb, that he has to go through waivers, and probably some team gives him a chance with knowing the spring he's had and knowing the success he had last year. Like I know some people are going to be like, oh, well, he hasn't been that great of an offensive player, but like he was taking walks in Seattle. He was playing multiple positions. He can play first, he can play third, he can play the corner outfield. Like there are things about him that are valuable. And, there's going to be a team that loves the sabermetrics that are like, hey, he takes the walks. He swings it for some power, and he can play multiple positions. I'll even throw a team that I don't think is sabermetrical at you. The Phillies.
There are 30 teams that are sabermetrical.
But I'm gonna say the Phillies aren't as high as like maybe the Astros or the Dodgers is what I meant by that. But let me throw the Phillies at you. What happens if Jake Lamb becomes available and the Phillies know that they don't have to give up anything for him? Rhys Hoskins is out for the year. Could they say, Jake Lamb, we're going to give you a chance to play first base until, the All-Star break? And if we're still in this thing and you're not pulling your weight, then we can cut you and, maybe we can go look for a first baseman. Or maybe he's raking and, he plays first base the whole year. I don't know, but like that's an interesting team that could use him. Obviously, the Mariners liked what they had last year. The Dodgers had him as well, and obviously, if the Dodgers have you once, they see something. So I don't know. There's a bunch of different teams that I think could be interested in Jake Lamb if he gets kicked off the roster. But that's the one thing that I'm worried about is like, I really liked what Lamb did, but if you're going to keep Phillips, and if I know you say that Phillips won't be the reason the Angels suck, but if Phillips is not hitting above 100, there's a problem. And now you have to decide, do we want a guy who's going to hit something, or do we want a guy who is, going to be a good clubhouse guy and play really good defense in an outfield that we're probably not going to give too many off days to? So I don't know. I'm super happy Jake Lamb made the roster. I think he had an incredible spring. You saw some really good things from him. The defensive versatility, which is awesome. And he's been there and done that before. Like he's had some really good years. So I'm excited for him. It just kind of sucks that it doesn't come at a more opportune time. Like if this comes in May or June and you have, 6 weeks to find out if he needs to be on the roster or if he should be cut, like it makes it a little bit easier. But you're having to make a decision. Maybe it could even be like a week or two before his decision is done. So I don't know.
I can't say that TOS is 100% causing what's going on with Jared Walsh, but
you can see what I'm talking
there
about.
are some studies that, I mean, you get the neck, it's the neck, the shoulder, can't be easy to sleep. Not saying that has anything to do with it. I'm sure it was asked by the beat reporters. I'm sure it was asked, or I'm sure it will be asked after this game when they get some time with Phil Nevin. But you get shoulder, you get neck, you get back, where all of that stuff going on. It's not easy to sleep, and I'm gonna give it to us.
Too.
I'm gonna give it to us and say that
the neck could lead to some headaches too.
100%. I get that all the time, right? From the from the scap area, it just doesn't. Yeah, I get that all the time. So
we'll give us a point for that one.
1 point.
We don't get too many things right, but we're gonna mark that thing down.
What do we know? What do we even know? I mean, come on. But no. With that being said, Jared Walsh makes the Angels better when he is playing. So I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him gone for that long. But yeah, this is a tough thing to come back from, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is a lingering thing. Like we've seen it. We see it with pitchers. It takes pitchers 2 years. Some pitchers don't even come back from this. And to think that somebody's going to recover from this in less than 6 months. Has it been 6 months? It's been 6 months, right?
October, just 6.5 months.
6 months. To think that somebody can recover from this in 6 months is tough. Like I know he was swinging well. He played in spring training and everything like that. But I mean, this is not an easy injury to recover from, and it wouldn't surprise me if what's going on with Walsh and why he's starting on the IL is side effects of what's going on. And it sucks because I want to see the Angels healthy. Like, yeah, this. I wouldn't say it's the bad start to the season, but Jared Walsh being in the lineup, even if he is batting 6th or 7th against righties, he helps the Angels. He hits very well. He's a 160 WRC plus guy against righties.
That's right? Bold to say 160. I would have said like 135, 140.
Go look at his last year into his really good year. Good half year. I think he was a 168 WRC plus against righties in that 2021 season. Very, very good. I mean, that's Mike Trout stat. Like that's really close to being Mike Trout, so to add that in there is you need that. You really do. So you got to get Walsh back in that lineup. And yeah, I'm excited. We have baseball this week, Nate. We're going to come out with a couple more podcasts along the way here. I don't think we'll have any guests on. Everybody's really getting busy, but come out with a couple more podcasts for you guys here in the coming days and weeks. You got anything else before we let everybody go? You looking up that WRC plus?
I am. Right? I don't know if I'm going to find it in time, but I do have one issue with the squad, and you're going to be like, oh, it's not a big deal. Who cares?
Well, I mean, we also didn't talk that 6th starter, so give that, and then
we can talk about that too. Like it's coming down to Davidson and Canning.
It's Davidson.
I was just gonna say I think Davidson's gonna win it, partly because Perry needs him to win it because of the trade. No, don't give me that.
No, we've said this. We said it. We both said it. We both
Perry
said
needs he needs Davidson to make this roster. If Davidson does not make this roster, there are going to be a lot of people pissed off saying you paid for Estevez, Loop, more,
and he's earned it after this spring. To be honest, like I thought he's pitched well enough this spring. Granted, we've seen 30 innings.
I'm just saying you paid for 4 guys to get rid of Russell Iglesias, who was an absolute dude for you 2 years ago, I guess now. But you got
then to go and be a dude again.
And yeah, he probably would be a dude again, yes. And you got rid of him for this guy who you're going to DFA in spring of the next year. Like, you can't do that, especially when you claim that you want to win championships. And it's like, okay, Like, if you're going to get rid of him, you can't be doing salary dumps. You've got to either get rid of him and get something in return. And it doesn't have to be like, we weren't asking for it to be a superstar. Like, you could have gotten some kid who's 18 to 20 years old who's been in, low A, maybe in high A. And it's like, hey, let's go find out if this kid can make it. Instead, you go get a starting pitcher where you're actually pretty well off in the starting pitching roles. And
don't contradict yourself.
They're pretty deep when it comes to young starting pitchers. They don't have any starting pitchers that have major league.
You can't have enough You can't have enough pitching.
Yeah,
that is the number one rule.
But they don't have. Yeah, they don't have major league guys. They have guys that have shown signs in the minor leagues, but they don't have any guys who have pitched in the major leagues. Unless you're going to count Griffin Canning if he doesn't make this roster. So Davidson needs to make this roster. He's going to make this roster. Canning's going to start the year in AAA. He's going to get some starts, going to allow him to get some innings pitched, and then we're going to see how Davidson gets. I think he's going to get a really, really short leash. He's probably going to get 2 or 3 starts to prove that he should be the 6th starter.
Bullpen. He's going to get bullpen first.
Well, he's going to start in the bullpen, of course. Yeah. But I think he's going to get 1 or 2 starts after pitching out of the bullpen, and it's going to be like, hey, if your starts aren't good, like, we're getting rid of you, and we're going to go to Griffin Canning, and hopefully he's the answer. And I'm not even 100% convinced he's the answer. But the one thing that I was going to talk about that goes along with what we were just saying, there is no closer.
Don't give me that. I don't like the term closer. I really don't. You have to get. I
you don't.
I think that they need.
Go find me a team. Go find me a team that has won that doesn't have a closer. Go find me that team.
Won the World Series or won?
Yeah, no, won the World Series, because that's what we're talking about here.
Who did Philly have last year?
Thank
you. You don't even know off the top of your head who they're.
Well, they
didn't have a closer. Didn't have a closer.
They started the year with Corey Knebel.
Didn't have a closer. He was hurt.
Man. They didn't.
Didn't have a closer. I win.
Did they win?
No, they didn't. But
who won? Was that Ryan Presley, who was Team USA's closer and just lights out?
That's fine. Oh, I mean, making the World Series is winning in a sense. They didn't win it all. I get it. I do. I know
they had David Robertson too, by the way.
The Astros were different. They
had David Robertson too, by the way, who is a closer. They also traded for pieces to close games for them. So they cared about getting outs in the 9th inning because they tried that, show of, hey, can we just hopefully somebody will get us the last 3 outs? No, it didn't work because that's not how it works. And
put guys in the right spot and everything will be okay. The Angels don't.
But do they have a guy who can get outs to end the game in the 9th inning? I don't think they have a guy.
For me, last season, Ryan Tepera and Aaron Loop were not put in correct spots, and they do have a guy that can close games out, and that's Matt Moore. He can close games out. He had 5 saves last year. He's a high leverage pitcher. He was a setup man last year a little bit as well. He can be a high leverage pitcher. I'm not saying that is the dude, but it wouldn't surprise me there. They also have some guys in the minors too, man. Like, I know that they're not major league guys, but I mean,
sure, they have guys in the minors, but you can't win the World Series in April, but you can lose it.
Okay, let's not give a preview yet, because we'll do that here in a couple days. We'll do the preview for opening day.
It's true though, right? Like,
I'm not talking to you about this right now. We'll save it. All right, guys. With all that being said, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Follow myself on Twitter, Jared_Tim's, Nate at NateGreen34. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.